Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today we're taking a look at the Steel Will Piercer. This is a new knife for 2019. You've probably seen my first impressions on this, and so this will be our full review and discussion. Obviously, this is a particular version of this knife. It is the titanium frame lock version as opposed to the stainless steel liner lock version, and it is satin finish on that D2 steel. The liner lock version has the same steel, but it's also available in black. Now, I've got to tell you guys, the thing that stood out to me about this knife right away is just the overall look here. I just love these simple, minimalist designs. And the designer, the Italian designer who's responsible for this is Tommaso Rumici. And I'm probably completely messing that up. You know, hopefully it's one of those, you say tomato, I say Tomasco situations. And so I'm not doing too bad of a job on it, but I love the fact that Steel Will worked with him. Of course, you know, generally speaking, it's a good thing when knife companies and knife designers, you know, collaborate on stuff. I can think of just this super long list, and so I'm not even going to go into it. But you know, think of what Wee's done, and Riyadh has done, and Spyderco has done, and all these other companies working together, and working together with custom designers. And I think you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first time Steel Will has worked with a custom designer. And if you go over to Tommaso's website, you can see that this is pretty consistent with his overall design theme, if you will. And he tends to make really attractive, very user-friendly type of knife designs. Now, size and weight on this guy is a bit of a departure for me. I've broken the rules a little, and I've been known to do that, by the way. I just tend to like knives. So every once in a while, I'll get a comment saying like, you know, you should only review expensive knives, or you should only review cheap knives, you should only review tactical knives, or whatever. And the fact is, I just kind of like them all. And so, yeah, this one is a little smaller than my usual preference. Normally, I like knives that are 8 inches or over. This is only 7 11/16, which is a little under 7 3/4. The blade length especially is, you know, smaller than I like, 3 3/16 on that blade, 4.5 inches, by the way, on the handle, since we're kind of doing this anyway, and 3.8 ounces. I will say there are a couple things that kind of get this knife around my normal preferences. Okay, first of all, it's really hand filling. It's extremely comfortable. I just, the design, the handle here is super well done and just does not feel like a small knife. Okay, so I've got to point that out right away. The other thing is the way that this is kind of set up. Yeah, I don't know. You just don't notice that you're carrying a smaller knife than usual. All right, so. That gets us through size and weight, and yes, it is a little smaller than I generally like to carry, but in this case, I'm giving it a pass because I just don't find that this is a knife where I feel that it's too small, and I know that's purely subjective, but there you go. Blade on this is D2 steel. Obviously, it has a full flat grind. We've got a bit of a swedge up front here, nice and thin behind the edge, and it's not super thick blade stock to begin with, so this is a knife that cuts really well. I guess slices really well. And, you know, one of those knives that if you're going to be cutting up apples or carrots or something on a regular basis, this is going to be a good option for you. Now, frankly, I don't do that all the time with my EDC, but, you know, especially these days, it seems like I have a friend who every time my son goes to karate, his little friend brings an apple and they want to cut it up. And so every week we've got to get the knife out. And I think his dad just likes to see what knife I happen to be carrying that day. Anyway. Besides the point, but this will cut apples really well if that's something you do with your EDC. D2 steel is not stainless. Keep that in mind. It might require a little bit of care depending on where you live. My environment happens to be pretty dry. We don't get super crazy humidity. And so I find D2 just fine. But maybe you live in a place that's, you know, really crazy humid, or right on the coast, you know, you have salt in the air and stuff. And that could be an issue for you with the D2. Really, I find this blade extremely functional, extremely versatile, so huge win on the blade. Let's talk about lockup and deployment next, kind of way we normally do, work our way down the knife. This is a titanium frame lock. Obviously, you can see the lock bar insert there, And I think you can see, yeah, right there is an over travel stop. This is on washers, okay? So there's no bearings in here. And initially out of box, this was a little less than ideal, but with a bit of love and a little bit of lubrication and some break-in time, it has become very, very smooth. So if you pick one of these up and it's not immediately super, super smooth, don't worry, give it a little bit of time, play with it a little, clean up the pivot, maybe lubricate it a little, and you should be fine. By the way, thinking of when this came out of box, I did get this from White Mountain Knives, and they do have them in stock, so go over there, use my discount code, which is Sharp Stuff, and you'll get 10% off, which is nice. These are pretty reasonably priced anyway. This version is, I think, $110. The other one is the G10, or I mean the liner lock version is like $67. And so yeah, 10% off is not a bad deal at all. I've a couple more things to hit on here. The lock bar is easily accessible. Now the only thing I really can't do with this is thumb flick it. I've tried. I guess I can kind of do it if I really think about it carefully, but your thumb kind of runs into the handle here. So for me, I find a spider flick works the best to open this. Otherwise, I'm going to roll it out with my thumb. The opening hole is not too sharp. I find it just, it catches my thumb just as much as I want it to. And that can be a bit of a thing, but no, this one is really well done. So lockup and deployment, very nice. Oh, by the way, no play of any kind. This is quite solid. And again, over time, I've had to play with that a little bit. So right out of box, there was a teeny bit of side-to-side play, and of course it was pretty smooth. But as I tightened it down to get rid of the play, then it wasn't so smooth. And like I've been saying, a little bit of break-in time, a little bit of TLC, some lubrication and some cleaning, and it came really, really nice, which is very, very enjoyable as far as I'm concerned. Especially when if you don't have bearings, hey, it takes a little bit of extra to make sure things are done right, to make sure it's smooth. Let's see, so lockup and deployment, we pretty well covered all of that. How about the handle construction and how comfortable this is in hand, otherwise known as ergonomics? So what we have here is, of course, titanium frame lock, G10 on the handle, G10 on the show side, washers. We already talked about the over travel stop and all of that. I will point out one thing. A couple of you have asked before. So on a knife like this, where it's just G10 on the show side, does that mean that my stop pin or something, does that mean I'm weakening the pivot area here, that the hidden stop pin, which was where this question originated, is somehow a problem? Well, all the knives that I've seen that are constructed in this way, they have some steel inserts in and around the pivot area to make sure that there's plenty of strength. They'll have, standoff screws here, so you're not screwing screws into titanium or G10. So allowances are, steps are taken to make sure that, you're not wearing out the G10 by having metal on G10, which is kind of a fail. But in this case, yeah, everything is put together very well. It does come down quite easily. Got a backspacer here with a full titanium backspacer. I guess not full. Open construction with a titanium backspacer. I don't know why I'm having a hard time with this portion of the discussion here. Nice lanyard hole, well integrated into the design. And I do really like the way they've done this pocket clip. So the way this is done, it's just screwed into the pommel of the knife there. And if you want to flip it to the other side, it's just a matter of taking the screw out, flipping it the other way. You can see it's cut out to allow for that. And now you can have it left side tip up carry. It is, of course, only tip up carry. Left or right side though. So I've got to say, I really like the way they've done that. And the clip does go in and out of pocket quite nicely, and it's very minimal. So, someone could almost think you have a pen in your pocket when you're carrying this around. So I've got to say, I like the way they've done the clip here. In terms of feel in hand, this is one of the areas, and I've already kind of mentioned this, but this knife really, really feels good. It's just so natural in hand. It feels like a larger knife than it is. It's just hand filling, confidence inspiring. I really, really like the way this knife carries, or the way this knife feels in just about any grip you can think of. No hot spots, lots of comfort, lots of finger real estate there. Just really, really well done in terms of how this feels in hand, in terms of the ergonomics of it. A couple of quick comparisons. Now, this is a knife that reminds me of a couple of others, and I'll bring those out first, and then You know what, let's reverse that. So let's bring out just the typical comparisons first. So there's a Rat Model 1. Everyone's kind of familiar with that. And by the way, this is more in my size range. This is what I kind of like to carry. Here is a PM2. Again, a knife that everybody is familiar with. And again, something a little more in my size range. Notice though, by the way, that the blade length, the cutting edge length is about the same on these two knives. Now, a couple of knives that do kind of remind me of this. One is the Cold Steel American Lawman. A lot of similar things here. It's, you know, a knife that's slim, easy to carry, but that gives me lots of real estate in hand and has that sort of fatter blade. I don't know, maybe I'm kind of attracted to that style, but these two knives kind of remind me of each other, especially in hand. They don't look all that much the same, but when I have it in hand, it just kind of makes me think of the American Lawman. The other knife I'll bring in here is the Mastrop Ferrum Forge Crux. Again, a smaller knife than I generally like to carry, and this one has even less cutting edge than this. You know, this is probably not a forever knife for me because of the ProTech Mordax that's coming out. But it is a knife, a smaller knife, that I really, really like, that maybe doesn't feel quite as small as it is in hand. And I think that's because largely the thickness of the handle here. Again, pretty good value on both of the, you know, both of these you're getting titanium frame lock. This one's like 110, this one's like 120, 125, I think is what they kind of go for. So that's another, I don't know, they just kind of put me in mind of each other. Lastly, let's bring in a different steel will. This is the steel will Lanner. Now, this is obviously a much larger knife, but I thought I'd bring it in because it does demonstrate the same point we've been making with this. This knife, the action was not fantastic out of box, but it's been breaking in and getting better and better and better as time goes by. Both of them, of course, are phosphor bronze washers. So, what do I think of this knife overall? Is this a knife that I would recommend? I would recommend this without question. Now, that's especially in the titanium frame lock version. Honestly, I haven't played with and had the experience with the liner lock version. So other than the ergonomics, which I assume would be about the same, and the blade shape, which obviously would be the same, both of those things function really well. But I can't really tell you, you know, about blade play or lock strength or anything like that on the liner lock version. But I can tell you on the titanium frame lock version, it is really, really nice. It's smoothed out very well for me. And it's very confidence inspiring. I really, really like the action on this. So yes, would I recommend this for 110 bucks every day? This is a great knife. The only, what would you say? The only thing that kind of twigs in the back of my mind at that price point, it would have been nice to see something stainless here, maybe VG10 or 154 CM or something like that. But honestly, D2 steel is a great steel. I really don't have a problem with it. And yeah, I absolutely would buy this knife any day for $110. It's really, really nice. And of course, I happen to love the design and love the way this feels in hand. So there you go, guys. Yeah, this is a huge recommend. I think this is a massive win for Steel Will. And I anticipate this being very popular. I'm actually a little surprised that we're not getting a little more, you know, when the Cutjack came out, everybody was talking about the Cutjack. We haven't had quite as much hype, I guess, around the Piercer. And honestly, I think it deserves more because I just like this design a whole lot more. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.